Welcome to Lesson 2B. We're going to learn about data types and declarations, creating variables in Java, and learning where to use them and how to use them. So let's get started with this. A variable in Java is a named piece of memory, and it has certain characteristics. They can include numbers, strings of characters, logical, true or false, variables, more complicated constructions. Basically, what a variable in Java is you say, hey, Java, give me some memory. I'm going to call this memory by a particular name. Maybe I'm going to call it B, or string variable, or temperature. Now, you set aside some memory that's going to be used only for that. I'll call it by my name, and you know that when you refer to that memory, you're referring to it as an integer or as a string of characters and so on. Now, all variables in Java need to be declared before they're used. That isn't true in all programming languages. Some programming languages you can use the variable and it has some default characteristics. Java says, you want to set aside memory and use it, you better tell me how to do it beforehand. And all variables have a scope, the portion of the program in which they're usable. Now, we're going to concentrate on four main data types in this course: int, double, Boolean, and string. There are many others, but these four are going to get us going. Here's some examples of declarations. I've got 8 declarations here. Each of them starts with the type of variable. These two say int, these two say double, these two say string. Notice the capital S here. All the others were lowercase. These two say Boolean. Now, what have I declared? A variable called n, a variable called numRows, a variable called temperature, one called pressure, one called favorite color, one called prompt, one called isEvenNumber, and one called first time. I have a choice when I declare a variable in Java. I can either say, hey, Java, give me an amount of memory that I'm going to refer to by the variable name n, and you're going to treat as if it's an integer. Or I can say, hey, Java, give me some memory. I'm going to call it numRows. You're going to treat it as an integer. And by the way, let's start it out with the value 5. I don't have to put a starting value, but if I don't, then I don't know what's in it. I'll have to assign some value before I start using it. My choice whether I want to initialize it right at the same time I declare it or not. And that's true for each of the data types. So what are my numeric data types? I can have either integers or floating points. Integers are whole numbers, including positive, negative, and 0. Floating points are numbers that can include decimal values. Even if my number is 3, I can have a floating point version of 3, 3.0000000, and so on. So to get an integer, I use the data type int. I can take values from negative 2 billion something to positive 2 billion something. That's negative 2 to the 31st power, and this is positive 2 to the 31st power minus 1. Those are some pretty big numbers. If you need numbers that are bigger than this, you have to use something other than int, but we won't get into that in this class. For floating point numbers, I'm going to use the data type double. Java stores things using base 2 notation, but we think in base 10, so I can get to approximately 10 raised to the 308th power. That's a 1 with 308 zeros, probably bigger than anything you're going to worry about, with about 16 significant digits of accuracy. So if you want really big numbers or numbers with lots of digits of accuracy, use double. If you can live with whole numbers and 2 billion to minus 2 billion will work, go ahead and use an int. The string data type consists of 0 or more characters, characters that are attached together, concatenated. When you specify the value of a string, you enclose the string within double quotation marks, and you can choose to have a string that doesn't have any characters in it yet. Maybe you're going to be adding characters one at a time later on. You specify the 0-character string either by using the word null, N-U-L-L, or using double quote marks with no space between them. So each of these is a legal, valid variable declaration. Hey, Java, give me some memory for a variable I'm going to call food order. You're going to treat it as a string of characters. And, oh, by the way, when it starts out, I don't know what's going to be in it. This one says, give me some memory. I'll call it drink order. You're going to treat it as a string. And it starts out with, well, nothing yet. I'll get to it later. Our final data type is called Boolean, B-O-O-L-E-A-N. It means a logical variable, a variable that can only take on two values. It's either true or it's false. We use this an awful lot in programming when we have to make decisions. The values true and false in Java are specified by typing out the word true or the word false, all lowercase characters. Now let's talk about the scope of a variable. A variable can be used only within the braces that enclose its declaration. So here I've got something called int n equals 5. I can use the variable n from this point forward as long as I'm within the enclosing braces. So n is good all the way down to here. I can do system.out.println n, it'll print out a value of 5. Here I've got some more braces. If I have int second int equals -20, second int can be used from wherever I declare it until the end of its enclosing braces. That's down to here. So I can print out second int inside these braces. If I tried to print out second int after the brace, I'd get an error message from Java. But, of course, I can still print out n because the scope of n goes up until this brace. The next video will show us some practice in Eclipse, how to use these, and what to see when you make errors, which inevitably will happen. So you need to recognize the errors so you can fix them. Go ahead and watch the next video. Thanks.